So Amy said, perhaps in today's meeting, one topic can be choosing the right location for your practice. I've done some homework on the topic and outside of therapy, the business world suggests that location is everything for success. Different folks share that location is important due to proximity to competitors and simultaneously a corner to be ideal to be seen easily in multiple directions. Further, that a standalone is best for most retail organizations. I'd like to hear more, please. And then you kind of go into a few kind of bullet points, I'd say, under that question, like what are your thoughts about the location? According to millennials, they seem okay being seen and don't invest in privacy as much, meaning having a private entrance. Also, is there value to being located to other medical providers? Should a newbie practice be located by near a gigantic competitor? What are some assets that others believe should be provided by the landlord? What are considerations that would steer you away from a location? And you've learned that the office used to be rented by a counselor. It seems possible to contact this provider. Would you call and inquire about their choice to leave the location? So, awesome questions. First, let me say, I'm really glad that you're thinking through all of these questions, because those are all questions that I would want to have too. But let me start with your last one. If you know the person that left that office before you sign on the lease, I definitely would reach out to them to just say, hey, I'm just interested in what your experience was. I wouldn't ask them, why'd you leave? Because sometimes it's upgrading, sometimes they're going location independent. There's a variety of reasons. I would be more interested in, what's this landlord like? What's the location like? So let's go back to kind of your first questions in regards to location. The primary thing that I think is important is that your location style, the amenities, that it matches the level of client that you are trying to attract. So for example, when I first started mental wellness counseling, I was subleasing an office from another clinician. So it was a psychologist that had an office. He was in his 60s or so. I paid him a percentage of what I brought in. It was just a side gig. And it was great because I could pay him as I grew. My cap for that amount was about 20% above market value. So even though he could get probably $400 or $500 a month for the office, I think my cap was like $700 or $800. So for years I was paying $200 or $300 to use this office for evenings and weekends and things like that. And then over time it was like, wow, I'm hitting this $700 every single month. I need to start looking for a different place. The style of that place, when people saw my website, which was very kind of Instagram-y, had some cool looks to it, had a modern logo, their reaction almost always was, oh, this looks different than I expected, because I wasn't allowed to decorate it. It was his office. His couch had this blue and white checkered pattern with little flowers on it that looked like a picnic blanket. He had one of those accountant roll top desks that was very lawyer-y. Had fake plants and brass on everything. So it just wasn't my style. But for that phase of practice, it made sense. And, people still got good therapy. When they were in therapy, they weren't looking at, this, which is now my office. They were looking at me and the background there. And once they were in that therapy session, it was really more about the relationship. So with therapy in particular, I think that the location and the style of the office can be important, but ultimately, it's that therapeutic relationship that's going to, make it the best. I had a moment when he subleased the office to other people, and kind of the rule was when you were in session, you had the door shut. When you weren't in session, you left it open, just so we would never kind of walk in on someone in session. So this guy had left all the lights on the night before and had the door shut. So I thought he was in session, and I had a client coming in. So I ended up doing a client session, almost like knee to knee with people in the file room, because I didn't want to disrupt his session, but he wasn't even in there. The session was still a good session though. So with therapy, I think it is less important to just have some prime location, but it's better to have it match your kind of overall feel. So when we sought to upgrade, we got a 4-office suite here. It has a view of the water right there. It's downtown in a newer building. It matches the private pay rates that we're charging. And so, our clinicians are charging between $175 and $250 per session private pay. We don't even do courtesy billing for people. And so, we're in a nice building downtown. People have to pay for parking downtown. Not that I want them to have to pay for parking, but we don't offer that. We don't even validate. We have a refrigerator in our lobby that we have Starbucks and coconut water and kombucha in it. So it has a feel of wow, I got this $3 kombucha. So we look at every level. How do we make it feel like it's worth what they're paying, even if, you know, we're charging way more than that, you know, $3 or $4 Starbucks. So I don't think that a lot of people make a choice on a counselor specifically based on, wow, I just drove past that place. You know, it may be worth it to have a billboard. It may be worth it to have a sign, but I think it's less important for that and more important that you have good referrals, good recommendations, and then, you know, a decent looking location when people finally get there. Amy, what did I not cover from your question that you were interested in?
Well, I'm looking at a couple of different locations, so hence the questions that I tossed out there. I guess one of the biggest things right now is the area where the office I'm considering renting is literally right across the street from a brand new medical plaza that, upon scrutinizing it a little bit further, has some behavioral health offices in it that are not yet occupied. They've got their signage up, and other providers, OBGYN, primary care, that kind of sort of thing. So it works well, meshes well with that what I'm planning to do. And even just the way of driving into it, everybody going to this plaza would see my signage first. So I think that's a big plus.
Oh, yeah.
However, the downside I'm curious about is because they have these giant competitors that are part of their system. You know, is it the best idea when I'm so little and they're so huge?
I mean, those competitors are going to be there no matter what. You know, the way that they get their referrals typically in those systems is that their internal providers make those referrals. And so you're not going to probably be able to pull away from those people unless they have a bad experience and they're driving and be like, I'm never effing going to therapy again. And then they go past your sign on the way out and they're like, well, maybe I'll go to Amy's, you know? So I think it's a good networking opportunity. When you look at the price difference with any place, you want to say, okay, so this place is $1,000, this place is $2,000 a month. Do I think I can get $1,000 extra in business because of this location? Is it going to be worth that $2,000 a month versus $1,000 a month, or should I have a different place? You know, so basically, you're putting $1,000 a month into, and I'm not saying that's the difference, but you know, if you say have a nicer place, it's like having $1,000 in advertising in your place. And are you going to get an ROI for that extra rent that you pay? Or are there cheaper locations that you don't? I mean, it sounds like you're going to basically have a billboard in front of a medical center, you know, nonstop. You know, that's pretty good advertising. And as long as you kind of optimize that and you take referrals and get to know the other people in those buildings, they may not want to refer internally. Those large medical systems are notorious for you know, churning through counselors, and like, you know, people just work there for a few months or a few years and then they move on, because often those large bureaucracies are just not what the average clinician wants to work in. So you may see that they don't really do good behavioral health. I mean, maybe they do. I mean, but I would definitely consider that a strong contender for a location. Deamphora says, any idea on a nonprofit suggestion how to set up practice to repay student loan debt? That's a really good question. You know, I've heard of people partnering with nonprofits. I'll start with, that's not a specialty of mine. And so I'm going off of what people have told me has worked for them. But I would say often partnering with a nonprofit or doing a certain number of hours with a nonprofit. Look and see if your state has any suggestions. Also, most states will have some sort of grants or extra support for female-run businesses. That's actually something that, you know, Practice Solutions in Michigan, Jeremy and Catherine Zug own it, and Catherine's a 51% owner because then they can go after a number of grants as well. And she is she's active in the business. It's not just on paper. But then also, if you can show for some of those grants to help pay off student loans, you can also show that you're working in kind of lower income areas. The way I think about paying off student loans, though, is I'm less likely to say, yeah, go work at some place for $40,000 a year for 10 years so you can get your student loans forgiven. I'm more apt to say, how do we get you to make $100,000 over the next couple of years and just pay off your student loans early? You know, unless Elizabeth Warren or some other presidential candidate forgives student loans, like, to me, the best thing you can do is for you to pay them off as aggressively as possible so that they're just off of your plate. So the energy most people put into working at a nonprofit and serving groups so that they get them forgiven through the government if they put, even half that energy into really growing a private practice, they'd probably be able to they'd probably be able to speed up their student loan payments compared to working at a nonprofit. Good question though. Sean says, do you recommend a marketing system such as marketing360.com? Prices are $395 per month. They claim to provide all marketing platforms and management necessary to grow your brand. They also have a healthcare specific specialist. So for $400 a month, I mean, that's what a lot of people will pay in Facebook ads. So to me, that would be worth testing. Whenever you have something new, here's what I want you to do. It's called A/B testing. So you've got this idea, this marketing 360, and then that's $400 a month. Pick something else that you're pretty sure is going to work. So maybe Facebook ads that are really targeted, and put $400 a month into that as well. And so you're going to run an A/B test, and you're going to tell Marketing 360, I'm testing you against Facebook ads to see if you can bring in more clients than Facebook will, because that's way easier to just give Facebook $400 than to give you $400. So what they often do is they raise their game. They put in extra effort. I did this once when I was reached out to for a local magazine. We have the Traverse City Business News, which is aimed at small businesses and such. And then we have the Grand Traverse Women's Magazine, aimed at women in Traverse City. They both reached out around Christmas and said, hey, we're planning our January issue. We can do an ad for $500. I think it was like a half-page ad or something like that. And I said, sure. I'm actually going to run one in the Traverse City Business News and one in yours and see which one wins. And whichever wins, I'm going to invest more in. Is there anything you can add on in addition to that half-page ad? One of them said, well, we can give you a 3/4 page ad, and we'll email our email list, and we'll also give you a spotlight on our Facebook page. The other one was like, oh, we'll do a spotlight on Instagram, and we'll also put you in the footer of our email for the day. So it's like you get these bonuses by saying, I'm having you compete against somebody else. So then you have Marketing 360, and then you want to ask people when they come in how they hear about you, because if you don't have a way to track that, that's a problem. Whether or not you're paying money, you want to be able to track people. So when people sign up for, say, Killing It Camp, if they say, oh, it was your masterclass yesterday that really helped me see the value in it, well, then I should do more master classes. Whereas if nobody says that, and most of the new tickets that are bought for that are from a Facebook ad we ran, I need to do more Facebook ads and stop wasting my time on master classes, even if a bunch of people come to it. So we want to look at what's actually converting, what's bringing in the money for the return on investment for our time and our money.